It's part of the October 9th remote session, and it is dealing with selections of data. So as we learned in the last two videos, selecting is what allows us to really sort of pare down and highlight large sets of data so that we're focused in only on features, records, shapes, whatever, that are of most value and interest to us. And once things are selected, not only does it help us sort of visualize what we've been seeing in each video, that it also can control the analysis. So once we're selected, that would be the only thing that would calculate a statistic. It'd be the only thing that would summarize, the only thing that would calculate a field, so on and so forth. So we did it manually in the first video, we did information in the second, and the third here is select by location. It's using the geography, or rather the geography of what I want to select as it relates to something else. So we'll open that up, and it has certainly more features than some of the others, and let's walk through them. First, input features means you can sort of select multiple. So if I wanted to select crimes and neighborhoods and roads and whatever, all of which that have a relationship with the selecting feature, I could. But really what you're reading this as is input features means what I want to select. And in this instance, I'm looking to select crimes. And in particular, maybe crimes that are occurring close to parks. And the relationship is really the spatial relationship, the way that the two things work. And I'll test out sort of a few this time. But intersect would simply mean the shapes touch in any fashion. Within a distance is what we're going to do in a second, and that's certainly a pretty commonly used one. Hey, only find me things that are within 500 feet or, outside of 500 or whatever. Contains is usually like my thing contains yours, and it's related to within, right? My thing is within yours. So this could be crimes within parks, right? Would be one way of looking at that. Identical to is usually able to find if two different data sources are actually the same thing. Boundary touches, if their boundaries crossed by the outline of. And then another common one you'll see is have their center in. Right, so that's usually a way of selecting something based on whether its center of gravity happens to be within that sort of space. Right? Whereas contains is, any part of it can sort of be inside the other. All right, so let's do the distance. Crimes, and maybe what we're looking for here. What you want to select, the geographic relationship that will drive the selection, and then the other geographic feature, right? So I want crimes to have a certain relationship with parks, right? In instance, I'm going to want to select crimes that are within a distance that I'll specify here. All right, maybe let's look for those really proximate ones, those crimes that are within 500 feet of parks. And again, I want to do a new selection here. And so run, and it'll take a second, and there we go, right? I've highlighted here anything that is within 500 feet of a park, right? And I think you can immediately, with just that step, or hopefully see what I mean when I say that these are probably the most useful, or at least some of the most useful and powerful tools in Arc Pro, just from what they allow you to do right there, right? Immediately visualize and prepare for analytics something based on its location to something else. And this is also a good time to really start introducing these selection types. I'm going to do something I like to call the donut, right? The not too close but not too far. So what if instead of within 500 feet of a park, we wanted to look between 500 and 1,000? Well, there's no between option. But what I could do is say, hey, find me something that is within 1,000 feet, right? It'll select anything within 1,000 feet. And then I could come to the relationship type and say, remove from that anything within 500 feet. Right? So this is that dynamism I was talking about. We selected everything within 1,000 feet, and now we're dynamically saying, but remove those records from this selection, right? So don't mess with anything that hasn't been selected. We don't care about any of these ones in green. We only care about what's selected, but we do want to remove those that are within 500 feet. And you could do this over and over and over and over and over and over again. Right? You can even incorporate attributes into this. Right? I could take the attributes and open it up and say, hey, I want to select crimes as well. I want this to be a select from a selection, maybe. Select from. So, I only have, how many crimes are eligible here? 5,268 crimes meet that criteria of being within 500 to 1,000 feet of a park. So I'm saying, hey, select from those crimes, and maybe I'll create a new expression which is, primary is equal to theft. And again, it's not going to select all the thefts, right? We did this last video, and I think there was like 4,700 thefts. It's only going to select those that already meet this sort of proximate but not too proximate to a park criteria. That's the point of the dynamism I'm talking about. Right now we're down to 1,195, all of which meet the park criteria. And if I were to look at selections, all of which would meet the theft criteria as well. So again, it's that interesting concept that your selections aren't static, that they can keep growing off each other. They can remove what's already selected. They can select from what has been selected. And I'll show you sort of one last thing I think is sort of interesting too. You can often do that with sort of container joins too. So I'm going to get rid of the crimes now, and I'm going to open up sort of the neighborhoods, just so I can show sort of a container join. And the neat thing is, right, if I were to come in and say select by location, and I'll say select the parks, for example, that intersect, we'll say a neighborhood. And pretty much all of them will park because they all intersect the neighborhood. But if I clear and actually pre-select a container, this is really good for those sort of intersect or withins. Now I could do the same thing and say I want the parks to intersect the neighborhoods. And I'd run it. And see how it responds to my preloaded criteria. I had already selected just this neighborhood, and therefore it only performed the selection to what was inside, right? So it's responding to that rule of selection that once something is selected, it's the only thing that is processed. So that's select by location, right? It allows you to look at the relationship between one or more spatial things and then pare down and highlight and select those which satisfy the criteria. It's dynamic. It can be paired with select by attribute. It can be paired manually. And it really and effectively lets you visualize and analyze your data in new ways. So this concludes the selection portion for these videos. So there'll be one more video to this series that may be loaded a little bit later on Friday as opposed to sort of normally in the morning. And that'll look at some more advanced field calculations. Selections and field calculator actually work a lot together. The main and simple reason is that once you've selected, it allows you to really hone in your calculations. If maybe you only wanted to calculate a value for thefts, you could select the thefts and then calculate. But I'm going to use that as sort of a first step to also explain some sort of next level techniques in how to use field calculator.